What's up everybody, I'm Matt Brody and this is Simply Must Go, and today I am giving you my long-term review on the Pioneer Hiker U-500 battery pack. Man, it is a beautiful day out, but like I said, this is my long-term review of the Hiker U-500 battery station by Powerness. Now, I've been running this battery pack for 6 to 8 months. I can't really remember. I've taken several long trips. I've done some base camping with it. I've gone to events. I've done a bunch of stuff. I've really put it through all of its paces because I wanted to tell you guys what I really thought about it, not just here are the specs coming out of a box. So this is typically what I'm doing at camp, right? Like I set up, I put up my awning, I put up some lights, I have the fridge, I have the battery pack, and everything's kind of running off of this battery station. And it's been awesome. Right off the bat, everyone's gonna wanna know, how long will it run a fridge? That's gonna depend on your fridge, quite honestly. I have this Set Power RV45S, and it runs this for roughly 36 hours, a little bit less if you have to initially cool down the fridge. So the way I do things to kind of conserve as much battery as possible is I will load up the fridge at home and cool it down on AC power, and then transfer everything into the Jeep and plug it in. So I wanted to show you what my setup looked like in the back of the Jeep so you can kind of visualize what I did and how I make sure I'm never out of power. So obviously I've got the fridge here. Back behind the fridge is where I keep the solar panel. It kind of tucks in there nice and neat. And then the battery usually sits back there a little bit just so it's out of the way and not able to fall, but so that you can see it, I've just placed it on top of the fridge. But this is the power coming out to the fridge. This is the power going into the battery station from the back of the Jeep, from the 12-volt cigarette adapter. But here's a little hack for you. So a lot of JKUs come with like a subwoofer or a cigarette outlet down here, depending on the package that you got. My Jeep had none of that. However, what I'm pretty sure is all of the Jeeps are actually wired to have that that cigarette outlet power down here, whether they actually give you that outlet or not. So all I did was I got an extra JKU outlet that takes the same plug. I don't know exactly what it's called. And I drilled a hole here and I just ran the cable up here. It sticks up just a little bit, but I'd rather have the cable up here sticking up rather than out the side where things can knock into it more easily. So I just moved it up here. And it, again, it wasn't an option that was initially on the Jeep, but they're all wired for it anyway. So all I did was I took one from somebody who had gotten rid of their stuff and drilled a hole and glued it in. It may not be the prettiest thing in the world, but it certainly works to put power up here where it's out of the way and makes it super easy to run power directly to the battery pack. Now, one thing to know about this is that this is on even when the ignition is not. So you do want to be careful that you're not just running the fridge directly from that or something like that overnight where you might run the battery on your starter battery down. So at night I definitely unplug this and I'm just using the battery. But when I'm driving, this is what keeps everything charging so that I never have to worry about running out of power. So right off the bat, this is a 515 watt 500 watt inverter battery station with a peak power outage of 1,000 watts. So if something initially takes 1,000 watts to get going, it'll power it. I will say, test it out before you get to camp because you just never know. Things say they take 1,000 amps and it's really like 1,010 and it may not run it. So just letting you know, test things out. But if you've got something that draws a little bit more power right off the get-go, like the fridge would, if it was just starting to cool down, this will run it just fine. This is a grade A lithium battery cell. That's really fancy terms, but all you really need to know about that is you get 1,000 life cycles before it drops to 80%. So it's not like after 1,000 charges it's dead. It's just you're at roughly 80% of its full new capacity. All right, let's talk about ports. Powerness puts a ton of awesome ports in here. You've obviously got your DC port. You've got 2 mini DC ports right underneath it, and it does come with a couple adapters, and I get a bunch of other devices like jumper packs and stuff like that that also use these same sort of mini DCs. So getting these little adapters for this is not a problem, but it gives you the option of running some extra DC devices. You've got multiple USB ports, so you've got 3 standard 2.4 amp USB-A ports. You've got a USB-C port, which is an in and out, so you can also charge this with that USB-C if you wanted to plug it into, you know, something like that. And then you've got a higher amp 60-watt USB as well, which would power something like a MacBook or something like that if you needed to charge a larger laptop or something. So you've got plenty of USB ports, plenty of DC ports. You also get 2 AC ports. What's really interesting about this that I didn't realize is you can actually plug in European plugs by switching it sideways and plugging it into these 2. So it's sort of a dual design. You only get 1 outlet that way if you're doing the European outlet, but you could do a European outlet here or 2 standard AC outlets here. And you have your charging port up here. So this is where you plug it in if you're plugging it into AC power or something like that, or if you're plugging in your solar panels, which we'll talk about in a second as well. It also has an LED light, a couple of different modes. Honestly, you know, it's a little light. It helps in the dark, but chances are you have other lights and better ways to light things than using this, but it's there if you absolutely need it. The other thing that it has is wireless charging on the top. So you can just set your phone right on the top and it will start charging. So when we're out camping, typically the biggest thing that I'm running is my fridge, but I've got a lot of other smaller devices and batteries that I've got to charge. So I've got things like, well, my microphone that I've got to charge. Got camera batteries. I've got this cool little O-light that takes a magnetic charger. Plug that in. GoPro. We'll plug that in. Yeah, so all kinds of stuff to plug in. And as you can see, it's running everything just fine. Right now, with all of this stuff, it's saying, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 hours is how long this battery would last. So again, you know, if you're base camping, you need to come up with a solution to make it run longer. If you're driving, you know, overnight and stuff, half of this stuff is going to be charging while you're driving, so you don't need to charge all this stuff at night. At night, I really am just running the fridge. This stuff usually charges during the day. I might charge 1 or 2 things at night, but I don't ever have an issue with that. So any battery that you look at getting should have a couple of standard features and safety options. For example, this has a pure sine wave inverter, temperature controls, surge protection, short circuit protection, over circuit protection, and low voltage protection. One of the things that makes this battery pack really interesting for overlanding and camping is it is U38.3 certified, which if you don't know what that means, don't worry. It's a really fancy term for it can take a whole lot of bumps and crashes. So it's designed to be jostled around and banged and not to fail or catch fire or something like that if it's involved in a crash. So this battery pack can take some hard hits and not be compromised and still work just fine. Before we move on to solar panels and extra goodies, one of the things that I really love about this is how light it is. This is about 11.5, 11.7 pounds, somewhere in that neighborhood. My last battery pack was over 15 pounds. So this is substantially light. This is nearly 20% lighter than my last battery pack at the same wattage. So obviously, you know, in the back of the Jeep, it doesn't provide a ton of value being a little bit lighter, but it is a little bit lighter and any bit of weight helps. But if you're carrying this around camp or you got to hike in somewhere, you know, any extra weight that you don't have to carry is awesome. But yeah, it shocked me the first time I picked this up how light it was. All right, let's talk solar panels. All right, so let me walk you through some of the solar panel options, and then I'm gonna tell you exactly how I base camp with all of this to make sure I never run out of power. This is Powerness's 100-watt solar panel, and it is certainly not a unique style to Powerness. You'll see the same style in a lot of other brands and manufacturers. So one of the things about this panel that makes it a little different than other panels that I've had is that on the back here, where you've got most of your power and connections and your electronics, when you open that up, you have a lot of different options. So right off the bat, this has also got enough room. I store my extension on here. We'll talk about that in a second. It came with all of these different adapters, which means the Powerness solar panel is not proprietary to using with a Powerness battery pack. You can use this with any number of other types of battery stations. So for example, when I was on the Allegheny Discovery route with Spartan Overland, he ended up having an issue where his DC charger stopped working for his EcoFlow battery pack, which was powering his fridge. And so on that trip, what we ended up doing was taking the solar panel and basically attaching it to the roof of his Tacoma with paracord, and then running the cable down, and this is the connector that plugs into the EcoFlow. And so we were able to power his, charge up his battery and power his fridge with this solar panel. And we would not have been able to do that with, let's say, some of the other solar panels that I've had that only have the connector for the battery station that they're designed for. So having all of these different adapters, so you've got the, I don't even know what all these are. You've got the standard ones here for different things. You've got the, what is that? I forget what that's called. But anyway, you've got a whole bunch of different adapters here. And in this pocket, there's plenty of room for additional cords, and particularly this one, which I highly recommend you get. It's an additional purchase. It's an extra thing to get, but it's basically an extension cord that you can use to run from the solar panel to the battery station. And it gives you, I don't even know, this is maybe 20 feet. But this is how I've solved my base camping solution. So when we're base camping, we're parked, we're in a single location for a long time. Typically, I get the Jeep parked, and a lot of times I'll face the windshield south, and I will mount this just on top of the windshield, and then I'll run this cord all the way back to the fridge so that I don't have to take the battery pack out and move it and keep it outside or anything like that. I can run this from the front of the Jeep all the way around to the back and be able to have everything locked up tight and weatherproof. This has been in the rain multiple times. It's had no issues. So that is how I base camp. This is a 100-watt solar panel. And with any solar panel, I don't care whose it is, plan on about 50% of whatever that wattage is. So if it's a 100-watt solar panel, plan on about 50 watts. If it's a 200-watt solar panel, you can plan on about 100 watts. But what I have found is, it's an ideal scenario, sure, you might get the 100 watts. But especially in the southeast, everywhere we camp, there's tree cover, sometimes there's clouds, there's all that kind of stuff. So I would plan on 50%, but at 50 watts, that's still plenty to charge the battery and run the fridge. So I've never had a problem running out. The battery stays at 100%, even if it's only collecting about 50 watts. While we're here, let's talk about the LCD screen and some of the data that it gives you. Right off the bat, you'll notice that this gives you a lot of information, unlike some other battery packs that I've had that kind of read out the battery level in increments of like 20%. So it'll go from 100 and then to 80 and then to 60. This actually gives you real numbers. So it'll drop to 98, 97. It'll give you all the actual readouts that you need. It'll give you the exact wattage going in and the exact wattage going out, as well as an estimate for how long the battery is going to last under those current circumstances. So I probably saved one of the best pieces of information for last, but now you're probably wondering, how much is it? And well, quite frankly, it's a great price. Right now you can find this on Amazon for about $299. They have a combo pack with the battery station and the solar panel for about $500. That's a great price for a battery station in general. But I have seen them offer online coupons on Amazon for up to $100 off. So you could potentially get this for $200, which is just a stupid price for a 500-watt battery station. So if you find it for that, grab it. But that is awesome. You can't beat that. And so you can see that with the fridge in maintenance mode, it's taking up next to no power. It's just not even registering right now. So this actually brings me to another really important point, is that right now the battery is really not pulling any power. The refrigerator is not really asking for any power. And I've had a couple of other batteries that at this point, over time, if it has happened for a while, it shuts the battery off. And then you end up with a fridge that doesn't turn back on because the battery turned off, and now the fridge is like, well, there's no power. And so you end up with a fridge that hasn't been on all night, and it's not the best thing in the world by any means. So I have not had this problem with this battery at all. My understanding from the literature is that it's not going to happen. It doesn't just turn itself off like that if there is an extended period of time where it's not being asked for power. As long as it's on, it will stay on, which is great, so that you don't have to worry about it. I've had this thing, running for days on end in cold weather, in hot weather, with the fridge at its optimal temperatures and stuff like that, and it has not ever shut off, and it's just worked great. I really like this little bad boy. It's a good battery. All right, guys, let me know what you think of the U-500 Hiker battery station by Powerness and these solar panels. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I will leave links to all of this and the combo set from Amazon in the description down below. If you use those links, those are affiliate links, so they help out me. It doesn't cost you any extra, but I get a little Amazon kickback from it, so if that's something you're interested in doing, please do. You can also go directly to powerness.com. I will leave a link. Words are hard, man. I will leave a link for those down below as well, so you can get it wherever you want. All right, until next time, God bless, and we'll see you on the trails.